and welcome to the Medieval Times. Over the past month, our group has been tasked with researching how one would go about sieging or defending against a siege in the Middle Ages. Initially, castles were made of wood, mud, and bailey, and they were quick and easy to make. However, this also meant they were quick and easy to destroy. This is part of what caused them to upgrade from wooden to stone castles. However, even with these upgraded castles, this did not stop the castle from being sieged in the first place. In 1204 AD, for example, there was a castle built by Richard the Lionheart, and the French King Philip began a siege against it in 1203 and took it over in 1204. Philip's men found a way under the second circle through an unguarded toilet outlet of all things, and then they tunneled under the third wall, using their bridge as cover. This shows how tactical maneuvering was more reliable than just a full-force assault back in the Middle Ages.
Hello, and welcome to the Medieval Times. Today, we're going to talk about offensive strategy and how the invaders attacked their enemies. One of their strategies was surrounding and starving the castle. This is where the invading army would surround the castle and cut off its supplies for food and water, with the hope of starving their defenders. In an effort to spread disease among the defenders, the invaders could use their catapults to send dead or diseased animals, sometimes even human bodies, over the castle walls. They could also loft fire projectiles to wreak havoc inside the castle. This siege method was actually preferred because the invading army might negotiate the castle's surrender with minimal casualties. But it took months, years to work, and the invading army had to be very well supplied with food and water for the duration of the siege. If they had time to prepare, the defenders could outlast the siege. They usually brought supplies and people from the surrounding countryside into the castle. Most castles had their own water supplies for this situation. Also, the defenders would usually burn the surrounding countryside so the invading army could not forage it for supplies. Often, the outcome of the siege depended on whether the invading army or the defending army received reinforcements first. The invaders would set huge scaling ladders against the castle outer wall. Attackers would climb the ladders to get into the castle. However, the climbers were vulnerable to arrow fire and objects thrown at them from battlements on the castle walls. Defenders could also push the ladders off the walls.
No! No! Get out of here! No! No one likes you! No one likes.
The invaders built large wooden siege towers and filled them with soldiers. Siege towers provided cover for the invading soldiers, but they were large and heavy.
A belfry, or a siege tower, was used for gaining access into a castle, generally at the level of battlements. It was typically constructed in wood and on several stories, as many necessary to reach the battlements or the top of the castle.
Also, the defenders could set these wooden towers ablaze with firing arrows. Sometimes the attackers would ram the doors. If the invading army could break down the castle gate, they could enter the castle relatively easy. So they used battering rams to pound against the gate and eventually break it.
A battering ram is a siege engine originating in ancient times to breach fortification walls or doors. In its simplest form, the battering ram is just a large, heavy lug carried by several people and propelled with force against a target. The momentum of the ram damages the target.
Some battering rams were covered to shield the invading soldiers from the defenders' arrow fire and thrown objects. Sometimes the wooden castle gates were set on fire to weaken them. To defend against battering rams, however, defenders would fire arrows. They would often lower soft, padded curtains, or wooden walls to lessen the impact of the battering rams. Finally, they could brace the castle doors or gates to withstand the forces of the blows.
For Scotland!
And, as we mentioned, castle gates had murder holes. and arrow loops to help pick off invaders who breached the gates. Another strategy that they would do is they would try to bring down the walls. If an invading army could create a breach in a wall, they could enter the castle in a less defended place. Invaders smashed the walls with battering rams and launched heavy stone projectiles and flaming projectiles at and over the walls. Another way to bring down the castle walls was to mine under them. Yes, under them. The invading army would dig tunnels under the castle walls and brace them with timber supports. Once they dug the tunnel far enough to the other side, they would set the tunnel on fire and fuego. The timber supports would be destroyed and the wall above the tunnel would collapse. But defenders could counter by digging under the invading army's tunnel before it reached the wall.
For the barrier. Gonna get through this.
Welcome back to Medieval Times. Today I'm going to talk about the defensive strategies to stop the attackers from attacking the castle. The attackers usually use a moat, and this can stop the attackers to bring a siege machine near the castle. Because if it is dry, then the sticks might be planted to slow the enemy and make them easier targets. The gatehouse is a very weak spot. A barricade was placed to the front to guard the approach from the attackers. Also, a drawbridge and a porticus gave extra protection from the attack. A porticus is a iron-covered wooden grille moving up and down in slots on any entrances. It is raised by a winch in a room above. It could be dropped quickly if danger encounters. Wooden platforms raises up to protect the castle by attaching chains to pulleys and turning bridges fighted like a seesaw. Walls of the castles were easy targets for cannons. It was obvious that most effective way to protect the fortress walls was to increase the thickness of the walls and have varying angles to lessen the likelihood of direct cannon hit.
Thank you for watching the Medieval Times.
We hope you learned something today.
We hope you enjoy.
And remember, Mr. Hinnick, it's milk, not milk.
Great.
Stop. Hello. Hello. Firing arrows? What? What?
Bring down the walls for Scotland! Scotland!
That was
The victorious!
That was retarded.
Scotland!